Just a quick disclaimer before we begin. This video is definitely not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. This is just me talking about my journey and sharing my personal financial story.
So imagine spending years carefully handpicking this totally diversified investment portfolio.
Right, meticulously balancing all your sectors.
Exactly. You balance it all out only to discover, this hidden structural flaw that's secretly doubling your risk.
Oh yeah, you think you're completely diversified, but under the surface, all your money is tied to one specific outcome.
It's terrifying, honestly. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Today, our mission is to analyze the actual blueprints of your specific multi-account strategy.
And we're throwing the daily ticker prices completely out the window for this one.
Yeah, totally out the window. We are hunting for those hidden overlaps. We hear endlessly about, asset allocation, like what percentage of your money goes into stocks versus bonds.
Right, the classic 60-40 split or whatnot.
Exactly. But today, we're dissecting something casual investors usually ignore: asset location.
Yeah, asset location is really the masterclass level of portfolio management. It's not just what you buy. It's deciding exactly where a specific investment should live.
Because where it lives changes everything.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You have to ask yourself, does this high-growth tech stock belong in a tax-free retirement account?
Right.
Or, does this steady dividend payer belong in a standard taxable brokerage?
Because the location literally dictates the actual mathematical return you keep.
Exactly. After taxes take their bite.
So looking at the blueprints for your specific setup, it looks incredibly modern on the surface. We see massive allocations to future-facing trends: artificial intelligence, semiconductor manufacturing, big data.
That's the face stuff.
All of it. But to see how this architecture actually functions, we have to look at the bedrock.
Strip away the tech stocks for a minute.
Right. When we do that, your tax-advantaged Roth IRA is anchored by two massive Vanguard indexes.
Heavy lifters.
Yeah, you have the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index, VTSAX, for broad U.S. exposure, and then the Vanguard Pacific Stock Index, VPATAX, for international.
And that broad market capture is precisely why a fund like VTSAS serves as this perfect low-maintenance bedrock.
It just sits there and works.
Right. By buying a tiny slice of the entire American economy, the internal turnover of the fund remains incredibly low, which makes it highly efficient.
You aren't betting on one software company.
No, you're betting on the aggregate compounding success of thousands of U.S. businesses.
I always think of this part of a portfolio like pouring the concrete foundation for a custom house.
That's a great way to put it.
I mean, nobody ever invites their friends over to a dinner party and says, hey, come down to the basement and check out this amazing concrete slab I just poured.
Right. It's not sexy at all.
It's inherently unflashy.
Yeah.
But it is literally the only thing keeping the roof from caving in when a storm hits the market.
The structural integrity comes entirely from that boring stability. But the other half of your foundation, the Pacific Stock Index, that's where this blueprint gets highly customized.
Right, because most people just buy a total international fund, right?
Exactly. Most investors default to a broad international fund to capture the whole globe. But by choosing VPATX instead, you're making this deliberate, highly concentrated bet solely on the Asia-Pacific region.
Places like Japan, Australia, Singapore.
Hong Kong, yeah.
But wait, by isolating that specific region, you're purposely leaving out the entire mature European economy and South America.
You're ignoring a massive chunk of the globe, yeah.
Doesn't completely ignoring Europe totally change the risk profile of what's supposed to be your safe concrete foundation?
Well, it actively shifts the foundation from purely defensive to tactically aggressive.
Oh, really? How so?
Let's look at the economic mechanics driving that region. By isolating the Pacific Basin, you are inherently tying your international foundation to the absolute epicenter of global tech manufacturing and supply chains.
So it's a tech play in disguise.
Essentially, yes. You're capturing demographic and corporate governance shifts in Japan, alongside the sheer industrial output of Taiwan and South Korea.
You're basically deciding that Europe is too heavily regulated and slow.
Right. You're saying Europe acts as a drag on growth, and you'd rather anchor your international exposure to the world's most critical supply chain choke points.
Okay, so the foundation itself has this subtle tilt toward tech and manufacturing. But you don't just live on a concrete slab.
No, you've got to build walls.
Right, you add the living space. And sitting right on top of those Vanguard indexes, still safely inside the tax-advantaged Roth IRA, you've handpicked a really fascinating list of elite individual equities.
This is where it gets interesting.
You've got defensive cash cows like PepsiCo and Berkshire Hathaway, energy exposure with Chevron, and then these massive growth names.
The heavy hitters.
Yeah, Alphabet, Palo Alto Networks for cybersecurity, ASML for semiconductor lithography, and BlackRock.
And see, this is where asset location theory really gets put into practice. Shielding companies like ASML and Palo Alto Networks inside a Roth IRA is just a brilliant use of the tax code.
Because they're what we call secular growth companies, right?
Yes, these are secular growth giants.
Let's actually define that quickly, because people hear growth stock and just think of a chart going up.
Sure. Secular growth means these companies are riding massive, long-term macroeconomic shifts. And these shifts happen regardless of what the normal business cycle is doing.
So even in a recession?
Exactly. Even if the economy dips into a recession, corporations still have to spend billions on cybersecurity with Palo Alto Networks to prevent data breaches.
Right. You can't just turn off your firewall to save money.
You'd be out of business.
Right.
And the world still desperately needs the advanced microchips that can literally only be manufactured using ASML's proprietary lithography machines.
Right, because they basically hold a monopoly on that specific tech.
They hold virtual monopolies in these essential, future-facing industries. So they are positioned for exponential capital appreciation over a 20-year horizon.
And if you held a secular monster like ASML in a regular taxable account, and it goes on a massive run...
Which is what you want.
Right, but eventually you want to lock in those gains, and when you sell, the government steps in and takes a massive bite out of your profits through capital gains taxes.
Oh, it's brutal. Taking a 15 or 20% haircut on decades of compounded growth is a catastrophic loss of wealth.
So the Roth IRA fixes that.
Right. By locating those explosive growth engines in the Roth IRA, the government cannot touch a single cent of that appreciation. The compounding happens in a complete vacuum.
And that same mathematical advantage applies to the dividends too, right? Like from Chevron and Pepsi.
Exactly. In a taxable account, you pay taxes on those dividends the moment they hit your account, every single year.
It's like a constant leak.
Yeah. But in the Roth, you reinvest the full 100% of the dividend. That rapidly accelerates the compounding curve.
That dynamic makes the Roth IRA act like a perfectly sealed botanical greenhouse.
Oh, I like that.
You know, you purposefully bring your absolute fastest growing plants inside, along with the plants that produce the most fruit, because the greenhouse keeps them completely shielded from the harsh winter of the IRS.
That's a perfect analogy.
But looking closely at the specific plants you brought into this greenhouse, I have to push back on a couple of these choices.
Okay, let's examine the anomalies.
Well, Berkshire Hathaway doesn't even pay a dividend. Warren Buffett famously refuses to, right? He prefers to just retain the earnings and compound the capital internally.
Sure.
And Pepsi, while an incredible defensive company, is a relatively slow grower compared to, like, your cybersecurity and semiconductor names.
Right. It's not doubling every few years.
So if the greenhouse has limited space, isn't giving premium real estate to a non-dividend payer and a slow grower kind of a waste?
So that is the main friction point in asset location. Berkshire Hathaway is arguably the single most tax-efficient stock you can own in a regular taxable account.
Because it doesn't force a taxable event.
Precisely. By retaining earnings, Buffett is just increasing the actual net worth, the book value, of Berkshire itself. The stock price goes up, but you owe no taxes until the day you sell.
So putting it in the Roth
Provides almost zero additional benefit over holding it in a standard account.
because Berkshire is basically already wearing its own winter coat. It doesn't need the protection of the greenhouse.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. And with Pepsi, you are certainly sheltering the dividend yield, but the capital appreciation is going to lag far behind a tech giant.
So you're sheltering pennies while you could be sheltering dollars.
Right. If the ultimate goal of the Roth is to shield your biggest mathematical gains, a slower growth defensive stock might be taking up valuable space.
Yeah.
Space that could be deployed into another high-flying tech play with massive explosive upside.
Which means we need to step outside the greenhouse and look at where you are actually taking those massive swings.
The taxable account.
Exactly. Your taxable brokerage account is an entirely different beast. This account leans aggressively into future-facing innovation.
Heavy on the tech.
Yeah. This is where we find your massive semiconductor and artificial intelligence cluster. NVIDIA, Taiwan Semiconductor, Palantir, and Big Bear AI.
But we also see a really fascinating counterbalance in this account.
Oh, you mean the consumer stuff?
Yeah. Alongside that hyper-aggressive tech, you hold lifestyle and consumer bets. Dutch Bros Coffee, Disney, and the subscription retail powerhouse, Costco.
Don't forget the speculative biotech Replimune Group.
Right. And then sitting at the absolute bottom of this taxable account is the Schwab U.S. Dividend Equity ETF, SCHD.
It seems like you're trying to execute a barbell strategy here, like putting your money at the two extreme ends of the risk spectrum.
That is the exact architecture at play. On one end of the barbell, you have immense volatility.
Right, like Replimune Group. That sector is totally defined by binary outcomes, boom or bust, based on clinical trials.
Exactly. And Big Bear and Palantir carry wild price swings, too. But to prevent the entire portfolio from capsizing when tech takes a hit.
Because tech always takes a hit eventually.
Right. The other end of the barbell is loaded with predictable cash flows. Costco's revenue is incredibly sticky because of their membership model, which provides immense stability.
But I want to zero in on the aggressive end of that barbell for a second. Specifically, the way you stacked NVIDIA right next to Taiwan Semiconductor, TSM.
The AI cluster.
Yeah. When I look at those two together, it feels like owning the secret, highly coveted recipe for the world's best burger, which is NVIDIA,
Okay.
while simultaneously owning the only grill in town actually capable of cooking it, which is TSM.
That captures the symbiotic relationship perfectly. NVIDIA designs the world's most advanced AI chips. They write the recipe, but they do not own the fabrication plants to physically build them.
They're fabulous.
Right. They rely almost entirely on Taiwan Semiconductor to manifest those designs. By holding both in your portfolio, you're capturing the intellectual property dominance of NVIDIA software, while also capturing the physical manufacturing choke point of TSM.
But doesn't that inherently magnify your correlation risk? I mean, if the grill breaks down, the recipe is totally useless.
That's the danger.
If there's any geopolitical friction or supply chain disruption in Taiwan, both sides of that trade are going to plummet simultaneously.
The geopolitical correlation is massive, which goes right back to the absolute necessity of that barbell strategy. Having Costco and the SCHD dividend ETF in the same account is the only thing keeping the gravity localized.
Let's pull on that thread, though, and go back to our asset location blueprints.
Okay.
If SCHD is acting as your stabilizing anchor, throwing off this reliable stream of dividend income, having it sit in the taxable account seems like a structural flaw.
Because of the taxes.
Right. The government is taxing those dividends every single year.
Let's actually run the math on that tax drag to see how much damage it does over time. Let's say SCHD yields a 3.5% dividend.
Pretty standard.
Right. In a taxable account, depending on your income bracket, you might be losing 15 to 20% of that yield straight to taxes before you can even reinvest it.
Ouch.
So instead of reinvesting 3.5%, you're only reinvesting maybe 2.8%.
Which doesn't sound like a lot in year one.
But over a 20-year compounding horizon, losing that fraction of a percent annually geometricizes into tens of thousands of dollars in lost wealth creation. It is a massive, invisible leak in the hull of your portfolio.
It's like trying to run a competitive marathon while someone forces you to stop every mile and put a tiny pebble in your shoe.
That's exactly what it's like.
You can still run, but the drag eventually breaks your pace. So strategically, shouldn't you swap the SCHD right into the Roth IRA greenhouse and move the tax-efficient Berkshire Hathaway out to the taxable account?
Yes. That single move would instantly optimize the tax efficiency of this entire operation. Shield the heavy dividend payer, expose the non-dividend payer.
Okay, so we understand the Vanguard foundations, the Roth greenhouse, and the taxable barbell. But there's a totally different layer of architecture happening alongside your individual stock picks.
And this complicates this whole semiconductor strategy.
Massively, because you also rely heavily on active management through the Fidelity Contra Fund, ticker symbol FCNTX.
Right. When you buy an active mutual fund like Contra Fund, you are paying a management fee, usually around 0.8% or 1%, for a team of professional analysts at Fidelity to hunt for large cap growth.
They're trying to beat the market for you.
Exactly. Their mandate is to find the biggest, most dominant economic engines and buy them before the rest of the market catches up.
And here is where we uncover the massive hidden flaw in the blueprints.
They overlap.
Yes. When we lift the hood on the Fidelity Contra Fund to see what those highly paid analysts are actually buying with your money, we find massive concentrated positions in mega cap tech.
NVIDIA, Alphabet, Meta.
They are buying the exact same stocks you already bought individually.
Yep.
I look at this and compare it to carefully packing a suitcase for a long vacation and accidentally packing 3 heavy winter coats because you didn't bother to check what your partner already stuffed into the shared luggage.
It is the single most common trap in modern investing. When you zoom out and weigh the aggregate architecture of your entire ecosystem, a serious tension emerges here.
Because it looks diversified, but it isn't.
Right. You purposely built strong, cash-flowing anchors with Vanguard, Costco, and Pepsi. But because you hold individual AI stocks, and you hold a Pacific index heavy on tech manufacturing, and you hold an active mutual fund loading up on big tech.
Your exposure to semiconductors is heavily, heavily magnified.
Exactly. The risk is everywhere.
You bought NVIDIA individually, but because VTSAX represents the whole U.S. market, you already own NVIDIA inside your Roth Foundation.
And then on top of that,
Because of the contra fund, you are paying a Fidelity manager a premium fee to buy even more NVIDIA for you.
so the question of intention becomes critical here. Is this massive concentration a bug, or is it a feature?
Meaning, did you do it on purpose?
Right. If you ran the macroeconomic analysis and firmly intended to tie 40% of your total net worth to the success of artificial intelligence and microchips, then this magnification is a feature of your high conviction.
But if you bought the mutual fund thinking, great, this will provide broad diversification, only to realize it is essentially replicating your own stock picking.
Then it completely undoes the balancing work of your Vanguard Foundation. The fundamental purpose of paying an active manager is to access research or diversification that you cannot achieve on your own.
Why pay them to buy what you already own?
Exactly. If your mutual fund overlaps 80% with your personal brokerage account, you aren't diversifying. You are just concentrating your bets into a single sector, and you are paying an annual management fee for the privilege of doing so.
This hidden overlap perfectly illustrates why you can never look at your accounts in a vacuum. The walls of the taxable account have to connect seamlessly to the foundation of the Roth IRA, or the whole structural blueprint fails.
And to truly master this, investors need to implement what I call the X-ray audit.
Oh, I like that. What's the X-ray audit?
Before you buy an individual stock to capture a trend, you must run an X-ray on your active mutual funds and index funds. Know exactly what you already own underneath the surface.
So you don't buy that third winter coat.
Exactly. Master your asset location by sheltering your heavy compounders and dividends in the Roth and leave the tax-efficient capital allocators in the taxable accounts.
Keep the greenhouse optimally organized.
Keep the greenhouse organized and never pay a manager to buy what you already own for free.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought to mull over today. The next time you feel the urge to buy a high-conviction stock to capture a new megatrend, whether it is artificial intelligence, biotech, or the next big thing, pause and run that X-ray audit.
Seriously, do it.
Because your relentless pursuit of the future might be accidentally turning your supposedly diversified portfolio into a giant, highly flammable magnifying glass focused entirely on a single sector.
You always have to know what the blueprints are actually building.
Thanks for diving deep with us.